have way more feelings for you.
So many more feelings. Oh, yeah.
More feelings, yes. Yeah. Yeah, is everyone recovered? Chug some water, chug some wine, whatever is appropriate for you. Wonderful, wonderful. Yes. All right, so our first storyteller of the second half. So excited. Let's have some applause for Jude Jussum.
Let's have more applause. Why not?
I've never felt like I was a very good girl. I'm certainly an obedient child. I'm just not very good at being a girl. It's the 1950s. I'm 8 years old. And I have to work really hard to seem like I have anything in common with the other girls who are in my classes. I'm not interested in rhyming games and clapping things. I'm not particularly good at jump rope. I don't like frilly clothes. I only have one doll, and I'd much rather play with my blocks or read. I do a lot of reading. Or just do crafts, art, whatever. I like nature, and when I go to camp, my favorite thing is the sleep-outs. The other girls in my bunk hate sleep-outs. It has made me a pariah. I do have some friends who are girls, and I have friends who are boys, mostly on the block where I live. And we play New York City street games, and the boys help me catch bugs to feed to my toad, my pet toad. And at the same time, I'm not athletic. I'm not interested at all in sports. I'm not a tomboy. For one thing, I love dancing. I started taking ballet when I was 6, and then I switched over to modern dance, and I'm hoping to be a choreographer when I grow up. And the dance classes, of course, are for girls. But I know that there have to be some boys who take dance classes because, well, Fred Astaire movies, and I go with my parents to the city ballet, and there are men in the ballet. So somewhere it's happening, but any boys who did that around here, they would get teased or maybe even beaten up. My parents are different from my friends' parents. They don't care if I do girl things or boy things, mostly. My mom is always after me not to let people know that I'm smart, because then the boys won't like me. And she does this thing all the time. She says, "Il faut souffrir pour être belle," which is terrible because I am not interested in suffering to be beautiful. Anyway, it doesn't change that I'm a girl because that's the way I was born. Okay. I'm 24 years old. It's 1975. I've been married for a year. The other day, my husband told me he was a cross-dresser. And I was really shocked. And it hurt. And, well, at the office else. I just didn't have a very productive day. I did have flashes of attraction to girls when I was in college, but I never explored it because I didn't want to buy trouble. I thought I was marrying a regular guy. At least he's not a transsexual. I know there are some out there, but I don't know any of them. And crossdresser, it makes me think of Milton Berle, who I hate. Only the old ones know this one, right? or Flip Wilson and that Geraldine character. Anyway, I'm going to tell him it's okay, we can stay together while he gets therapy to get better. And in the meantime, I don't want to hear too much about it. My God, how did I get to be 47? It's the 1990s. My spouse and I have gotten past the don't ask, don't tell phase. Sorry, honey. I've gotten a lot more accepting. We have a baby. I've come out as bi. My spouse has decided that cross-dressing every couple of weeks really isn't enough for who they are. And so they're seeing a trans-friendly therapist. And when we talk about some of the things that are happening in therapy, I feel like there's a sort of echo, but I don't really understand it. I know a few MTFs, that's male to female in case there's anyone here who doesn't get that. Are there any FTMs? I wonder if there'd be any information at the library. No internet. So we started with an apparently heterosexual marriage, which is obviously evolving. I'm not sure exactly into what. And as you can imagine, there have been some rough spots along the way. So we are in imago couples therapy with a very open-minded lesbian therapist whose mind we are opening further. And we have been seeing her weekly for several months now, and she has us do this active listening thing, listen to each other, repeat back what the other said, make sure that we feel heard, that we really hear each other. So we're doing that drill, and all of a sudden, my voice sounds different. For one thing, the pitch has dropped about half an octave. And I'm talking kind of like the blue-collar New Yorkers in my neighborhood talked when I was a kid. Like the older boys that were on the block with me. And I'm always so articulate, but now my voice sounds a little rough, a little tough. Did you hear that? I asked the therapist and my spouse. They say they did. It feels like the voice of someone else inside me, or maybe my own voice inside me. I'm struggling with it. Talking in this new voice, it feels really comfortable, really relaxed, and extremely weird. Working hard to put the words together, I tell my spouse that I think I now understand the echo I was feeling. when we talked about their therapy. We're leaving the office and holy cow, I'm walking differently. My hips are looser, my stride is more natural, like this is what walking should have been like all along, but never was. I can even see further than before. It's not that my vision changed, but I guess I always just looked right around me, and now I'm looking way down the block. It feels like my mind is a 3D puzzle trying to rearrange itself to fit in a bunch of new pieces that weren't there before. And it's just, it feels like that's going to be the way it is for a while. I know there are many transgender people who always knew who they were, who always knew they were assigned the wrong gender, who always wanted to transition, who knew it was possible, if incredibly challenging. Myself, coming out at 47, was kind of different. I loved my FDM support groups, but most of the guys are only interested in transitioning to the other gender and then going stealth. And I'm not quite comfortable with that. After having lived my whole life as female, I'm not really confident I'd be a very good boy. Thank you.
Jude sat down before I could hug them, but like, let's have another round of applause.
I just wanted to put out that comment about, this is before the internet. It sort of resonated with me. It was, I think, earlier this past week, I found myself like filling out a form for something Jewish, and it happens. And as I was filling it out, I get to the part where it's, spouse, children, all that stuff, and I had to leave all those sections blank, because in that part of the Jewish world, we're at a very different point, right? These discussions aren't happening. There isn't, kind of this level, and it kind of got me thinking. I think, at least for me, it feels very easy to take a space like this for granted, right? And a community like this for granted, when in a lot of other parts of my life, and the world, the Jewish world, right? It feels like we're still living in sort of like before the internet, right? And you find yourself like, Google searching like trans halacha, and like finding this really weird archive of like Quora, yeah, right? And this is a really beautiful thing, and I don't know, just like we don't always realize like how amazing this is, and amazing we are.
Yeah, all week, people are like, what are you up to this weekend? And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm hosting this like LGBTQ intergenerational storytelling event at my synagogue, like you do. And then I was just like putting it out there, and then I'd like, my word, I am. We
So Jude and I are the chairs of the Queer and Trans Working Group, but I'm sort of the weird poet who's always on one, and Jude is the person who actually keeps track of details and keeps moving. And the reason we're all sitting here is, I think, more than any one single person. Yes, but Jude. So just sorry, one more round of applause.
I mean, Kaya's being modest, like the two of them together are a powerhouse. So if you want to get involved in the Queer and Trans Working Group, yes.
Yeah, come talk to us.
Yes. So, let's bring up our next storyteller, who I'm very excited about, Phil Superior.
So Jude, thank you for bringing notes. I'm not going to speak. It's really amazing. I'm calling this my journey home. It's a much longer journey than most of the people, most of our speakers have had, certainly. But because I'm kind of an old guy, and it's probably not quite as interesting because it's a more I don't know, predictable kind of a journey. Although it's still my journey, it's my personal journey home. So, I think of the journey as cursive and iterative and often impromptu, and it's all about coming out as a gay person. Thinking about this event tonight and listening, I'll have to say, while I was here, I realized how many differences there are in aspects of coming out and of my elder status, which I don't think of too often, but lately I've been thinking about it more often. So, I was born in 1945, and lived my early youth in Maine, in a small town where there were no people of color, and there were no different sorts of peoples. There were very few Democrats, I might add, and certainly no gay people that I knew of. Now, I knew I was different. I dated women, and I didn't understand why I didn't quite relish making out, but all of my friends loved it so much. And I was mildly attracted to other boys. And I didn't understand that very well either, although eventually I got around to it because I read a lot and I understood it, and I thought, well, I'm going to grow out of this. It's just something I need to put up with for a while, and I'm going to grow out of my attraction to boys. Then, in 1964, I was shot out of Maine. You could have put me in a cannon. I landed at Brandeis and in Boston, and I learned gay. That's where I first learned it. And out at the beginning to just a very few friends, and coming out to the world for me was different than gay sex, which I learned about in Boston, I might add. But I was keeping that in a separate compartment of my mind because they weren't my friends. You know, these were people I was just doing things with, and it was relatively anonymous most of the time. And I was spending an enormous amount of time studying and moving back and forth to the library in my dorm and sort of catching up academically because I grew up in Maine. You know, you're not as academically prepared as others were. And so I was, at the end of my sophomore year, I was elected vice president of the student council, along with a man in the class ahead of me, whose name was Brian, who was elected president of the student council. Brian and I spent the next summer together preparing for our tenure. We would go away weekends. And one of those in Maine, not too far from where I grew up, we came out to each other and became partners. We lived together on and off campus for 3 years. We were out to a limited number of classmates. And, you know, while we were very quiet about our LGBT selves on the campus, or our gay selves on the campus, we were also very busy in Boston helping to form gay organizations. We didn't say LGBT in those days, Q or N+. We just called them gay. And the first organization that I helped to found was the Homophile Union of Boston, and the Student Homophile League, and the Graduate Student Homophile League of Harvard. We brought to New York, to an apartment of friends of ours that we later actually moved into, Frank Kameny. I don't know if that name means anything to anybody. He was the founder of the Mattachine Society. So he came to Boston to help us figure out how to do this, how to form the homophile community health center. We did all that stuff, and yet I was out only to other LGBT plus folks. And so after graduate school, I moved to LA to teach junior high and high school, and again, I came out to only a very few faculty there. Again, sexual encounters were rich and frequent, but anonymous, and not really part of my life. So back to New York in 1974, where I met Jim Golden, not Golden, my current husband. I accepted a job in Boston for a Jewish organization, a community relations organization. Jim came to Boston to live with me, and we began our 45-year love partnership. Again, though, I only came out to a few colleagues at work. And after we were seen at a gay pride rally by a cousin of mine, my siblings sort of, we figured we'd better come out to my family. Now, my siblings knew already. Mom and Dad were probably unconsciously aware, but we did. We held this big mishpacha meeting of coming out, and I came out to the family, and everything was great, and that night we went to a family simcha, where my father, who I'm not even sure graduated from the 8th grade, came over to me, threw his arms around me, and said, "I don't care who you are or what you are my son, and I love you." Jim and I moved back to Brooklyn in '76, where we settled in Fort Greene, became active in local neighborhood improvement stuff, democratic politics, LGBTQ politics. I was very active at Lambda Independent Democrats. I was out in Brooklyn and in the Brooklyn political world. I knew politicos, but I was still not out at work and in certain professional circles. In 1993, in the aftermath of the Crown Heights riots and mayhem, Mayor David Dinkins, asked me to head the mayor's office of Jewish Community Affairs. I said yes. And then I got a telephone call from a colleague who worked at ADL, and she said, "Philip, you're not going to believe this, but these Haredim in Brooklyn are about to come out with a story that they're going to publish in the Brooklyn Press." I don't know if that paper still exists. It was sort of homophobic and racist and a bunch of things. And they're gonna basically say that the mayor first visited, this pogrom of Crown Heights upon us, and now he's visiting a shanda on the Jewish community by appointing a gay man to head his Jewish office. So I called the mayor. I said, "Listen, I have a job. I don't need to do this. I'd be glad if you hired somebody else. I want you to win." He said, No, it's no problem. Please come. So I said, okay, and then I got another call. They're about to do this. And I called the mayor again. He said, no, please come. And so I did. And at that moment, I systematically called every member of my organization's board of directors and every member of the UJA Federation board and came out. I will say, in that coming out experience, I learned the difference between actively coming out from here and many people sort of knowing silently or assuming what I was. I can't tell you how many people said, "Oh, we've been waiting for you to talk to us." So that moment of my decision to tell everybody and to come out made me run out, get my ear pierced, and walk into the world as a thoroughly out gay man. And that didn't seem to make any difference in my continuing professional and personal lives, and maybe it was an asset in my involvement at Kolot Chayeinu. In 2014, I was given an award by a National Behavioral Health Association before 2,000 award guests, gala guests, most of whom were strangers to me. In my acceptance speech, I had no hesitation or second thought about publicly thanking my husband for his support and helping me to get to that day. So we got married 15 years ago, actually. We worried about it, we debated it, we didn't know whether it was a heteronormative thing to do, we shouldn't do it, and we finally decided that it was actually a radical move because we were claiming something that had been denied to us. So we got married, we married legally, we got, one way to do that. We were married spiritually under the chuppah with Ellen and Lisa officiating before 100 or so family and friends. My mother, of blessed memory, who was 80 at the time, told me it was the happiest wedding she had ever attended.
We just wanted that pleasure of the story. That was amazing. These have all been amazing. I'm just blown away. You're all amazing. I love everyone here. I'm just feeling drunk right now. It's okay. No, it's just such a beautiful, amazing thing. The parallels between stories and the differences and the similarities. And also, you should have seen me when Phil was telling me that story on the phone. I was walking in McCarran Park in my neighborhood, and he gets to the part where he pierces his ear, and I'm like, which is not that weird of a thing to be doing in the streets of New York. It's like, yeah. So many. Also, the gay sex compartment that you described was amazing. Before the internet. So our final storyteller. Let's give it up for Imani Chapman.
What a gift to be here. Thank you. I started to get to know Judy in the fall of 2002. We belong to this spiritual group that has meetings all around the city. And after a few months, I stopped seeing her. Some people said she was sick. She came back many months later, had made a full recovery, and we started becoming friends. One day she says to me, "Do you want to go out for dinner after a meeting?" And I say, "Yeah. But really, I'm wondering, what is this?" So, I now know that these things are called ambiguous lesbian outings. She chooses Elephant and Castle in the West Village. And in a New York miracle, we're there for 2 hours and no one once offers us a check. We are laughing and laughing and laughing. I remember that she's just had a big birthday, 40, I think. And I say to her, "How was the party?" And she says, "Oh my gosh, it was amazing. We were out at my sister's house on Long Island. We rented a tent. There was a Middle Eastern dancer." She breaks out the phone. She shows me some pictures. And then she says, 50 is amazing. So we keep talking, and she's mentioned that a mutual friend of ours, Jen, had been pushing her to invite me out, and that Jen had said that she thought that I was around their age. "How old are you?" she says to me, and I say, I hate talking about my age because the minute I mention my age, people just start talking down to me. She waits. I say I'm 29. She says, "Oh, what do you think about Britney Spears?" And it was basically like that. how we were together. 6 months later, we were back at Elephant and Castle. It had taken 2 calligraphers, many US postal workers, and lots of coordination to plan this amazing proposal. And she opens up all of the pieces with the quotes and the little inter-office memo with the, circly thing, and rings inside, and she puts it in her hand, and she says, nothing. And I say to her, will you marry me? And she says, no. And I say, She says, did you say, am I mad at you? No, I say. Will you marry me? Yes, oh yes, she says. And she puts the ring on. And a little under a year later, we are married in a gorgeous wedding with all of our family. But by then, the cancer has come back. And she starts deliberating about which will last longer, her life or her money. And she's trying to decide if she should retire. And I remember in her office, she had this really cool slinky that she kept on her desk. It was an original, so metal, not plastic. And she loved to play with it. And I remember her packing it up when she decided she was going to retire. And on May 6th, they had this beautiful kind of who's who in AIDS public health retirement party for her. And it was amazing. The next week, I ended up getting a promotion at work. I had been promoted to Dean of Students of a middle school. And I remember her voicemail. It said, congratulations! You are so deserving. You're a dean. I'm Mrs. Dean now. And the next week, she went into the hospital, and she never came home. So I started my job 2 weeks later. I brought the slinky with me. You knew I was gonna, right? Brought the slinky with me because now I have an office and a desk. And the kids come in and they play with this slinky, and I always say, please be careful, that's really important to me. And they say, yeah, and they're all really careful. And sometimes they ask me the story, and sometimes they don't ask me the story. And so I'm in that job for a number of years, and then I decide I want to get pregnant. And getting pregnant was not easy. It took a long time, and incredible support from both of my parents, who went with me to all the appointments, and they were my birthing coaches. And so I decided by the time this baby comes, I'm definitely staying home for a year. Judy has afforded me that opportunity. And I clear out my desk, and I bring the slinky home, and it lives on the back of my bed, sprawled out, as slinkies should be. And a couple years down the road, my daughter and I moved to an apartment in Flatbush, and I decide that I'm finally going to have these quarterly Shabbat dinners. Because there are all these people that we keep saying we're going to get together, and we mean to get together, and we see each other, and we have very warm hugs, but we never get to talk. So I figure I'm going to do it quarterly. Whoever can come, comes. And if you don't come, there's always next time. So at the first one, we had a house full with lots of people, lots of warmth, lots of love. And there was a child there who is chronically undersupervised. And he goes into my room, he finds the slinky. And by the time I find him with the slinky, it is bent. And even though I know it can't be fixed, I call up several friends, and they say it can't be fixed. I'm really sad. I'm really sad. But I just, intent and impact matter, right? Both of them matter. And so I said, okay, I'm keeping the slinky, of course. The next week, I ended up on a first official date with someone my mom had introduced me to in 2005. And she is also funny and very generous. And she says to me when I get there, I was at the Tenement Museum and I wanted to pick up something for you and Ale. Ale's my daughter. And so I got her this, and she takes out this little, like, Gumby-looking dreidel, blue and white, and it has a gimel on the shirt, you know. My daughter, her first language is Spanish, so she regularly refers to this item as Miguel instead of gimel. And then she says, well, I wasn't sure what to get for you. I kind of went back and forth between the kids section and the adult section, and I got you this. And she puts a box in front of me, and it has the lyrics in Spanish to a song that we love. And I look at it and I think, I wonder what that is. I open the box, and inside, there's a slinky. And all I can do at this point is just raise my head up and say, thank you, Judy. Thank you.
Just when you thought you were out of feelings. Let's have another round.